welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about running. This is my second today, and welcome back to my channel, the Aunt Angie channel. I'm Angie, and today this is our second video talking about running. I started up the video segment last time with just a short little run that I did after I hadn't been running for a while, just to kind of get my feet wet. And I thought that I would rewind a little bit and tell you a little bit about where I've come from, because I know as a non-runner, it's super intimidating when you turn on a channel and people are like, oh, I just went out and ran 3 miles or 10 miles. I can remember talking to a friend of mine, and she's like, yeah, I went for a run. And I was like, oh, how far did you go? And she's like, oh, I just did 3 miles. And I kind of just wanted to punch her in the face, because at that time, running was something that I wanted to do, and it was something that was very difficult for me to do. So I want to use this video as an opportunity to talk to people who are in the same boat, who have had, who are, for whatever reason, running does not come easy to them, and to kind of explain to you where I came from. So first of all, when I was in about 5th grade, I'm old, so we had to do the presidential physical fitness. Some of you might remember that. And part of that was running a mile. And at that time, I was, pre-puberty or hitting puberty, and was chunking up a little bit. And I ran a 7.5-minute mile. I have no idea how I did it. I'd always been active. I wasn't the kid who, there was no video games back then, so I wasn't sitting at home. I wasn't allowed to sit at home and watch TV. But running just wasn't something that I really did long distance. And then after that, it seemed like I couldn't do it anymore. I started playing competitive volleyball and basketball, and running just really was a struggle in the years after that. And I don't know for sure what happened, if I just got out of shape or what exactly the issue was, but it was hard. So I've always held on to that idea that at some point in your life, you were able to do this. Now I realize that some of you out there are like, I've never been able to do this. I'm not sure that running a 7.5-minute mile in 5th grade really qualifies to say, like, I could have been a great runner. It just, for whatever reason, I did it that day. So fast forward 30 some years, and I kid you not, running 20 feet sounded like murder. I was, at the time when I started running, I was overweight, significantly. And we'll talk about that later, but it was, the idea of running 20 feet was just terrifying to me. So I met a friend of mine who's now my running partner. We knew each other, but we didn't know each other real well. And at the time I was dieting, I was doing keto, and I was struggling because I was doing it by myself in a family. There's 7 of us in the family, or in the house, and nobody else was doing it. And so I was surrounded by things, and it was just really difficult. And so she was doing it at the same time. So she came to my rescue one night and brought me some keto treats and whatever. And we started talking. And she's like, yeah, I've ran before. She'd done a Ragnar, but she said it was years ago, and she'd since then put on some weight. And she's like, I want to get back to doing it, and I want to get back into shape. So we decided that we were going to do it. So we downloaded the Couch to 5K app. Now there's a lot of different Couch to 5K apps out there, and a lot of them are pretty much the same. So we downloaded this app, and we started meeting in the evenings. When things started to cool off, we would get together and we would run. And the first run that you do is 60 seconds of jogging and 90 seconds of walking. And you alternate that after you do a 5-minute warm up, and then you have a 5-minute cool down. And so you end up with about 20, I think the first ones were 20 to 30 minutes long. And so we would go out and do this. And I remember the first time that the little bell rang telling us that we had to start running. And I was so terrified. I'm like, this is going to be the worst thing ever. Like, this is never going to work. I'm going to die. So we started running, and it was kind of terrible. And we would be red faced and sweating, and it was really bad. And we just kept going. We just kept doing it. And there were some days where we, as the times progressed, that one or both of us would have to stop and walk a little bit more than what we wanted to. One thing that I will tell you, and I think saved us both, is that we were acquaintances when we first met. We knew each other, but we weren't necessarily what you would call fast friends. We were acquaintances. And I think that probably saved us, because when it came time to actually go run and whatnot, I couldn't just say, oh, I don't want to do it. So I tried to do it with my sister-in-law before. I tried to do it with friends. And it's just too easy to be like, oh, I'm really tired, or this isn't going to work today. I don't really want to go. I can't get out of bed, whatever it is. It's too easy with somebody that you know. So the fact that at the time we were kind of just acquaintance friends made it a little bit easier, because I couldn't just blow her off. And she felt the same way too. I think, like, I have to go because, it's not like Angie's my sister or whatever. And so I have to go out and do this. So we really felt like we couldn't let the other person down, which I think is really, really important. Find a partner that you respect enough to keep going, and that you do keep going. So we kept working at it. Now, it wasn't super easy, but it was really rewarding. Some runs were better than others. And if you talk to anybody who runs, they will tell you that one day your 2-mile run is so easy, and then the next day, 1.5 miles feels like you're killing yourself. So those days would come. We also had issues where we started in the summertime. We have lives, we have families, we have jobs, we had interruptions, we had illnesses. One of us would get sick, and it would kind of derail the whole running. And so we would, if the other one, could keep going, then the other one would keep going. But when the sick one, or the one who wasn't able to participate, when they got back into the groove, then the one who had kept going would go back. So we would go back and we would say, okay, you've been out with a really nasty cold or the flu or whatever it may be. What do you think you can do? And so we'd be honest and say, I think I can do this workout. And maybe we had to go back 2 workouts from what we had previously, the last place that we had stopped. And we'd say, okay, let's do it. And there's sometimes when we stayed on a workout for 3 days because we weren't ready. I will say that there was, in this program, there's jumps. So you go along, and there's kind of a regular interval that they add. They add another 30 seconds or a minute or whatever it is, and you keep going. And then all of a sudden they add a bunch of minutes. And that can be super intimidating. And so the first time that we had a significant increase, that meant that I was going to be running for, I don't remember what it was, 20, 30 minutes, whatever the time frame was. And I was terrified. And for whatever reason, my running partner couldn't run that day. And we'd already kind of put it off. It was kind of one of those things where you either need to go out and do this run, or you're going to get set back as well. And so I decided I was going to do it. And so I got all the courage I could. I was terrified. I'm like, I'm never going to do this. And I destroyed it. It felt so good. I did so good. And like I said, I don't remember how long it was, but it felt so good. And I felt accomplished, and I felt like I could do hard things. And I honestly don't know where I got the energy to do that run that day, but everything, the cards all aligned. And from that point forward, it taught me that you can make these jumps. You can do it. There's a reason why they put these programs together. People can do this. So that was a big hurdle that both of us had to get over in our mindset, because she had the same issue. And when I talked to her and said, you've got to go do this run so that we're on the same page the next time that we get together. And she was freaked out, and I'm like, you can do it. And so she went ahead and did it. And she also completed the run, and everything was great. So you have to recognize the fact that a lot of it is mental, and you just have to go out and do it. And if you're dying, then stop and walk. Okay. But finish the run. Okay. The other thing that I will talk about is shoes. So when I started running, I had kind of a crappy pair of shoes. I thought that they were okay. Eventually I started getting shin splints, And I finally decided that it was time to get a new pair of shoes. And so I went and actually got fitted for a pair of shoes. Now, it's an investment, so I don't remember how much they were, but they were over $100, under $150 for the shoes. I've worn them for a long time. I probably should get another pair of shoes, but they made all the difference. My shin splints went away almost immediately. When I got fitted for them, they come out and they give you, they ask you, they watch you run. And then the salesperson goes and gets a bunch of shoes and they bring them out and you try them on and you walk around. And then the place that I went, they had a treadmill. And so I, with every pair of shoes, would get onto the treadmill and run. And then I would come back and I'd say, well, yeah, they felt good or they didn't feel good. One thing that I learned from doing that was, first of all, the first pair of shoes feels like any other pair of shoes to me. And then after I tried on a couple more, I started to be able to tell the differences between the shoes. So don't just go in and be like, oh yeah, these work, these feel great. Because if shoes, like shopping for running shoes isn't like exciting to me. So had she not had a bunch of boxes sitting there of different shoes to try on, I probably would have just said, oh, these will do, and left. But I didn't. So I tried on the next pair and I didn't like those as much. I definitely could tell the difference. When I tried on the third pair of shoes and I got up and I walked over to the treadmill, there was an immediate difference. And my sister-in-law was with me and she said, as soon as I got up and walked to the treadmill, she's like, she could tell a difference in the way that I was walking and was not surprised at all that I came back and said, these are the shoes. And I've never had a problem with them. Now, I'm not going to show you the shoes. I'm not going to tell you what brand they are or whatever, because you have to figure that out for yourself. What worked for me isn't going to work for you, but I would highly recommend getting a good pair of shoes so that you don't get injured, especially if yours are in bad shape that you've got. So these are my hints. This is kind of where we came from. So I went out yesterday and ran 2.5 miles. I've run 7 at this point is the most that I've run. And I will tell you that I hit the 3-mile mark originally and I was very excited. I actually hit it on my birthday. And the 3-mile mark was my goal. And it wasn't that I wanted to stay there. It was just my first goal. Like I felt like I could be called a runner once I hit the 3-mile mark. And so we hit the 3-mile mark and then we kept running 3 miles. And 3 miles, some days would be not so bad and other days would be terrible. And I got frustrated one day and I thought, when is 3 miles going to not be hard? And I realized 3 miles is not going to be hard when you can do 6. And so that's what I did is I started, we have to do 3 miles because that's all we have time for during the week. But on the weekends, I started bumping up that mileage and I would go 3.5 and I would go 4 the next week and then 4.5 and 5 and keep moving it on and on up. And eventually till I hit the 7-mile mark. And we've had some setbacks and whatnot lately, but I made it up to that point. And then once I made it up to that point, or, once I started getting more miles, then the morning 3-mile jogs were not that difficult. So you've got to get there. The other thing that I have been told, and I honestly believe this, is that once you can run 6 miles, you can run anything. So it really just is a matter of getting your body in shape. But once you hit the 6-mile mark, you have the mental wherewithal to do, a half marathon or even potentially train for a marathon. Now, when I was running 7 miles, my body was not ready for a marathon, but my mind was. So you have to get past the 3-mile mark. That's kind of the clutch there. Things start to really work out for you once you get past that. So if you have any questions, if you have comments, let me know. Put them down below, and thanks for joining me.